Hello and welcome. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kudza Iziki, and I'm the principal consultant of MCG Consulting, and we are offering this research and data analysis course in partnership with the Center for Research in Data Analytics, which is our partner in this program. Yesterday, we looked into the research paradigms, the different research paradigms that exist from which you can premise your study. And we discovered a number of them. Actually, we discovered four. We talked about ontology, we talked about axiology, we talked about epistemology, and we talked about methodology. And of all the four, I think you are most aware of basically two of them, which is epistemology and methodology, because you use them every time you do research. You use them directly because you find yourself thinking about whether I should use positivism, I should use interpretivism, I should use constructivism, or I should use pragmatism. These are the epistemologies that you normally use, and on the methodologies you normally use either quantitative, qualitative, or pragmatism. Basically, these are the most common ones. But just as a recap, we said ontology is the study of the nature of reality. So what we are studying is not a reality, but the nature of reality. We are studying the nature of reality. Reality is out there to be discovered. That is objective reality. There are those people who believe that reality is out there to be discovered. Then there are also those people who believe that there is no reality out there. It is a human creation. It is a creation of the human mind. That is subjective approach to reality. So the study of the nature of reality is what people focus on mainly, and that is ontology. And we go down to the epistemology. Epistemology looks into the study of how knowledge about the nature of reality is acquired. How knowledge about the nature of reality is acquired. That is epistemology. So we are now looking at positivism. It's a scientific perspective that you assume when you are looking into the nature of reality. And we are saying, for me to go into the study, I am premising my research process on the position that everything that we are going to be doing is scientifically based. It is out there to be discovered. It's objective, and anyone can actually carry out the same process and bring the same results. That is positivism, one of the most popular epistemologies. Then we have got those who believe that reality can be constructed. It's a human mind creation. Is as a result of interpretations. Is as a result of human creation, and that is interpretivism. These they will use subjective approaches to research, such as qualitative approaches, which will command things like interviews, in things like focus group discussions. So basically, that is their view. Then we've got those who take the pragmatic approach, where they say we need to get an experience of both sides, the scientific and the subjective reality approach. That is what we call pragmatism, and we go to focus on the issues to do with the constructive realism, which is also an approach which includes both scientific and the subjective reality. But he's saying each has got its own reality, and this is actually what matters to the people that actually carry out this study. To say, I can take my wife to the doctor, what the doctor has got, what he or she can do, which the traditional healer may not do. But while my wife is at the doctor, I also need to go to the traditional healer so that those who are fighting my family, I can have the protection over my family through the spiritual intervention of the traditional healer or the prophet, something like that. And we then talked about axiology, and we said this has more to do with the values that the researcher brings into the study. What values are you bringing into the study? And these values are critical because they define the, the, the nature of our results and the implication of our results to the people who are supposed to benefit from it. Were people coerced from into doing the study? Were the rights of the people respected? Was there transparency? Did they participate willingly without being forced? All those things are issues of values. What is it that you bring into the study? What are your values and how do they impact on the quality of the output that will come? So you see people thinking of about ethical issues, ethical clearance before they carry out their studies. It's a matter of trying to ensure that the values are maintained, and these values are critical for the development of any research that we are going to be doing. So basically this is what we covered on day one. So yesterday we tried to cover on the research process, and we did, but unfortunately the network was poor. I was working in town and I had problems with the network, so I thought I should record this session so that you may have a time to look into it. So basically we are looking at the research process, and we have what we call, we first stage is to identify the problem. The second one is to evaluate the literature. The third one is we create the hypothesis. The third one is we do the research design. Then we describe the population. Once we do that, we collect the data. We then analyze the data, and we then do the report. That is what is written on the first slide there, where there is a diagram showing the research process steps. So basically we start by identifying the problem. What we are doing here is we are saying for every research that you may think of, you need to be able to identify the problem before you carry out the study. What is the problem of this research? What exactly is not normal that the researcher is concerned about? So we look at there are a number of approaches that to get insight into a problem or a topic and get a better understanding of it, such as a preliminary survey. Let's say the appearance of things is not what is normal or what is expected. It shows that something is wrong. But the fact that something is wrong does not mean there is a problem. You need to carry out a preliminary survey in order to get the clarity about the problem that is being experienced. You need to get that kind of a clarity to say this is exactly my problem, and I think I need to proceed with the research study, because the preliminary survey is the one that can show you the actual problem that is existing. You can also be able to get insights into the research problem by taking a case study. A case study, you can just say, it seems there are a lot of problems that actually happening in this field. To focus on this study, if I have to understand or get a better understanding of this. So basically, you do a case study, it reveals to you the challenges that actually happening. So you're not going to do the whole survey, but you're just focusing on maybe one hospital or one school or one university. If you're about to understand the challenges that university students are facing with regards to accommodation, then you should focus on one university as a way of trying to establish if there's a real problem or not. Then the case study can reveal to you. Then you can also do interviews with a small group of people. Maybe out of the whole population, you just pick a few whom you think actually can elaborate to you what the problem is all about. and those interviews can give insights into the real problem that you're supposed to be researching on. Because normally what happens is what appears to be a problem at the beginning may not actually be the problem. The problem may be there, but it may not as easy as you think it is, and then you need to go deeper because sometimes symptoms or signs can appear to be the problem to such an extent that people can try to be solving a sign or a symptom of a problem and forgetting the problem, like what they normally do in the medical field or in the health care field, to say if you have a headache, be it a chronic headache, it does not reflect that the head is the one that has got a problem, but maybe some parts of the body may have the problem. It may be something in the stomach that is manifesting through the head. And if you focus on the head, then you are going to give a wrong prescription. So it's good to properly diagnose the situation so that you pick the right problem. And once you pick the right problem, you won't have challenges in establishing the real problem before you proceed. You can also do operational surveys. These are observational surveys actually. You just go into a place and you observe things as they are happening. Then you really get a picture of the problem. Let's assume someone has reported, or there are several reports about the transport system in urban areas, and you think maybe I need to get a deeper understanding of if there is a real problem or not, or it's just a management of this transport system. Then you find yourself going to one of the most popular bus terminus in Harare or in Gweru or Blawayo or Osaka or is it Zambia or Beira. You go there, let's assume you go to Harare and you are at Copacabana there, or you go to Market Square. You just watch as things happen. Maybe during the afternoon or after towards the 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. you see people leaving their workplaces going home, and you see how they just to around trying to get commuter-owned buses that takes them to their residential areas. And if you see the number of people is more than the number of available commuter-owned buses, then automatically you can make a conclusion that there is a real problem with regards to transport. But it's as a result of some observations that you have carried out, and you need to take these observations in a systematic way to say that there is a problem only happening in town, or it is also happening in the residential communities where these people are coming from as they go to work. So this can take you to Mufakose, this can take you to Chitungwiza early in the morning to try and observe the hustle that the commuters have with trying to get transport from their residential areas to the respective industrial and urban communities where they are working. So the observations may help you to come up with the real problem, to identify the real problem. So this is what we do when we're trying to come up with to identify the problem and to properly diagnose the situation so that we understand what exactly is the problem. So the second step is we evaluate the literature. We evaluate the literature. Someone may ask, why should I evaluate the literature? Okay, well, we are trying to do a study, and the bottom line is it's very uncommon for you to come up with a study that has never been carried out somewhere, or where no related studies have been done. It can't be so novel to the extent that it has never been done anywhere in the world. So even if you check in your Bible, there are certain verses which says there's nothing new under the sun. That's what the Bible says. I think that is Songs of Solomon or Ecclesiastes, where Solomon, after observing all the things that happens on the earth, and through his wisdom, he actually concluded that there's nothing new under the sun. So you evaluate existing literature from previous studies that has been carried by other people or in a field related to what you are trying to do. So if you pick up your laptop or your smartphone and you go online and just type the transport problems in urban communities. You will see a list of several studies that has been carried out worldwide about transport problems in urban communities. Then you review those writings and you see what was the problem according to their studies. Is there a relationship between what you have picked as a problem in your own study and what they picked as a problem in their own study? So it's something that is very critical. You should be able to understand uh, how they defined their problem, what were the key constructs in their study, so that when you're actually developing your own constructs, you should be guided by what others have done and see if it applies to the same situation as you are experiencing in your study. So a thorough examination of the relevant studies is essential to the research process. It enables the researcher to identify the precise aspects of the problem. Precise aspects of the problem. Once a problem has been found, the investigator or researcher needs to find out more about it. Now we are saying about, we have defined the problem in step one. Now we need to research more about the problem in step two, so that we have a deeper understanding of the problem. Just like what we did, people were dying in between 2019 and 2021. People were dying some respiratory problems, and those who were in the know-how then said, this is what we call COVID-19. It's a sort of a virus that affects the respiratory system of a human being to the extent that they struggle to breathe. And when they discover that it's actually this virus, then they called it COVID-19, which means there were some other COVIDs that happened before 2019, which had got their own names. In this COVID-19, they say it was a novel virus which manifested itself differently, but that's why they said any COVID-19. So basically, they reviewed what has been happening before and the other kind of pandemics that were related to respiratory systems, and they discovered that there were some measures which were taken by people during those periods to try and reduce the impact of the virus on people. And they looked into how it was being spread. Then they considered how to contain this in COVID-19 so that it doesn't spread rapidly across the people and be a threat to the lives of our people. So this is how they come up with the measures like working from home, no gatherings, face masks, whatever, no handshaking and others, sanitizers and other things. These were based on literature which was reviewed by the health practitioners to say normally this is how the virus is spread. So for us to be able to contain this virus, let us try to put these restrictive measures which will ensure that people will not spread the virus across the whole world and eliminate the human race. So this is what they reviewed and discovered, and out of it we had our own measures which were very tight, especially to most of us who were not used to be caged in our homes and spending the whole month without going to work. But it happened and it was part of our life. But it was because they've discovered the problem and they reviewed literature around the problem, and that is why they ended up saying, well, these are the measures to contain the disease. Now that we have discovered the literature that has been done by other people, you got the clear picture of how others have carried out their studies, the major construct that they discovered, the building blocks in their study, the themes that emerged out of their studies. You have a better understanding of how to navigate your own problem. You go to step three, which is you create the hypothesis. So here we are just assuming that we are working with the hypothesis, and we are saying if you want to create the hypothesis, you are looking at um, a scientific study. But if it's not a scientific study, you may look at research questions. You come up with the research questions or you come up with some assumptions that you think will gonna guide you in trying to explore the problem in detail. So formulating an original hypothesis in the next is the next logical step after narrowing down the research topic and defining it. It is important for researchers to keep in mind while formulating a hypothesis that it must be based on the research topic. Researchers are able to concentrate their efforts and stay committed to their objectives when they develop theories to guide their work. So, out of the literature, you now then come up with a hypothesis. Basically, let's say you are developing a literature for a specific research paper. You are trying to create knowledge. You realize that some other journals have a requirement that while you are building your literature, you then also build the hypothesis. So you are focusing on key constructs in the study. You review literature around them. At the end, then you say hypothesis development. You develop the hypothesis, then you write it down. You go to the next construct, you review literature about it, you then say hypothesis development, you develop a hypothesis which is related to the construct, and this construct is actually coming from the research objective that you have listed in your first section. Then you continue like that. So the hypotheses are educated guesses, and they are now educated guesses because in your literature you have reviewed what others have said, and you understand better your topic and your problem and your context of the study. So it's now an educated guess to say university students in Zimbabwe face accommodation challenges. So you now know what could be the main causes of such a problem. To say maybe the universities are taking more than what they can accommodate, something like that. Then you create a hypothesis. There is a positive relationship between A and B. That's an association. You then know that this is going to be tested by maybe a correlation, a coefficient analysis. Then once you have created the hypothesis, you proceed to the research design. The research design is the plan of achieving objectives and answering research questions or testing hypotheses. It outlines how to get relevant information. This plan fits into four categories or even more. Here I just tried to pick four, like our cross-sectional research design. So the research design is the plan on how to acquire data. It is the plan on how to acquire data. How do you plan to acquire data? That is our research design. So basically we are focusing on that thing and say, how do I acquire data? What is the most important method of acquiring data which can fit to my research epistemology, which can fit to my view of the world, which is my ontology, which can actually help me to extract the relevant information, relevant data that I can use to develop insights into it and come out with some conclusions. So you can do a cross-sectional analysis. A cross-sectional analysis where you pick just a part of the population and focus on it. This is where you're saying I can't do it for the whole population, but I can do a cross section of the population. You can actually do an experiment that is scientific in nature. So let me test the relation between A and B. You can do a cohort, a study. A cohort in study is normally called a longitudinal study, which is normally used in health studies or epidemic studies. It is carried out over a long period of time. Then you also do observations. You can also do time series studies to say you study the same phenomena over a period of time, and you have got a specific time period where you come back to the same community to do the same study. So if it's 2 years, you are saying June of the second year or the third year, June of the third year, June of the third year, you go back to the same community and carry out the same study. to see if there are any other significant changes that have emerged as a result of time. And that's why they are called time series studies. So we are not going to focus much on these research designs now. We are only trying to pick uh, the stage at which they are in the research process, so that you know that after I've done my hypothesis, I then focus on how to collect data. Then you have now defined your data collection methods. You go to step 5, which is you describe your population. And here you need to be able to understand that there is the population, and then there is the target population. Target population is a subset of the population, because not everyone in the population is likely to give you the the right responses. Let's say, for example, the example that we have given to say a study about the challenges that the university students face in getting accommodation in state universities. You may not be able to get the right responses from a university student who has just started university first year, first semester. But if you go to a third year or a fourth year student, they will be able to give you detailed responses, because they've been in the thick and thin of trying to get accommodation. They know the challenges, they know the regulations, and they know what needs to be done in order for you to get the right accommodation, which is maybe convenient to you in terms of accessibility to the school facilities, and at least also something that is manageable, that is affordable. So you have to be able to identify the target population, define it in clear terms, and justify why it is the most ideal population for you. And out of it, you also now narrow down to the sample size. What sample size should I focus on? Because the population itself is broad, but you need to now narrow it down to the study population, and the sample size should be able to represent the entire population, so that whatever response you are going to get, they reflect on the bigger picture of what the population has with regard to the phenomena. So basically, this is what you are doing as you describe your population. You go to step 6, which is data collection. Data collection, you're now trying to see, after you have defined the problem, after you have reviewed the literature, after you have created the hypothesis, after you have come up with the design and then the population, you need now to proceed with data collection. And you know, out of the first 5 steps, whether this study is likely to gather information from existing data sources, or you are going to do primary data collection. If it's about primary data collection, are you going to focus on interviews? Are you going to use questionnaires? Are you going to use observations? Are you going to use experiments? If it's about secondary data, you then focus on literature review. You review existing literature again. You look at what others have done, what has been written about this one. You also use official and unofficial reports. You use library resources to gather. This is secondary research. For example, you want to look into the inflation of a country over a period of time. Let's say it's about Zimbabwe, and we are looking at the inflation of Zimbabwe from 1980 to 2023. So it's a period of about 43 years. You can't commission a primary data collection process on this one, because some of the records, some of the people who were there during that period may not even be aware of what was the inflation like. But you just need to go to credible sources about the inflation results or economic data of a country. Basically, you go to the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, you go to the Central Bank to gather such information, you go to the IMF, you go to the World Bank, you go to the other organizations who are credible. And on this one, on data collection, it is very important that we are more concerned about the credibility of the source. Is it something that we can trust? Is it something that we have confidence in? Is it something that can actually bring to us the desired results? So these sources of information, sources of data are critical for you, and you need to be able to understand them properly. So you gather the data, and then you are assured of the data. And when you are gathering the data, remember on step 5 we try to describe the population, and then it came out of the sample, and that sample is supposed to be representative of the population. And when you are collecting data, you need to know that the amount of questionnaires you send, the interviews you do, the observations you carry out, the experiments you do are supposed to reflect the sample size that we have, so that we should be able to test whether the sample size was representative of the total population. And if it's not coming out clear, then we have problems. So the data collection procedure that you take is also critical in trying to understand how best to do it, because in some scenarios you realize that you need to combine both the primary data collection and also secondary data sources, so that you may have a clear picture of what happens. Or in some cases you need to do the objective data collection procedures, such as the questionnaires and the experiments, and follow them with some qualitative data collection processes like interviews or focus group discussions, so that you do a pragmatic approach to the start. So this process is very critical, because if you do it wrong at this stage, it's likely that the start won't make any sense. It can be challenged by other people to say, okay, you did this start, but the data collection approach that you used is not the right one. The data collection methods you used are not okay. That's why you see, if you are coming up with a questionnaire, you may have a challenge with it being approved, because it has to capture every significant detail about the phenomena that you are looking into. If you do not properly design it, yes, people will respond, but the responses are insignificant. They won't give you the proper insights about the phenomenon under study. So you go to step 7, which is data analysis. Under data analysis, you are looking at the data analysis procedures and processes that you are going to carry out. Are you going to be doing statistical data analysis? Are you going to be doing qualitative data analysis? What packages are you going to be using? So during this research, then the researcher plans data analysis. After collecting data, the researcher analyzes it. The data is examined based on the approach in this step. The research findings are reviewed and reported. Data analysis involves a number of closely related stages, such as setting up categories, applying these categories to raw data through coding and tabulation, and then drawing statistical conclusions. The researcher can examine the acquired data using a variety of statistical methods or qualitative data analysis techniques. So in this stage, you are now looking at the analysis, trying to get insights out of the data. And the biggest problem that we have seen is, with regards to statistical data analysis, you can input anything into the software. It can just generate results for you, which in some cases are meaningless. So you should remember that the data analysis that you are carrying should reflect the objectives of the study. It should be guided, for statistical analysis, it should be guided by the research hypothesis, which you have indicated in stage number 3 or step number 3. After you have reviewed your literature, there are some hypotheses which we have developed, or some research questions which we have developed. So your analysis is now trying to give a clear picture about the specific research objectives that you listed as you defined your problem, and this should be tested according to the research questions or research objectives or research hypotheses that you have listed below, that you have listed up in the first stages. So it's critical for you to be able to understand how to carry out data analysis and come up with the right outputs out of the data set. Then finally you do your research report. This is the final stage, but it is important for you also to note that the research report is something that is very critical, and you need to follow a standard format of the research report, so that you capture the important results of the study. Not everything, because everything is not what the researcher wanted. There are some specific focal points that were of concern to the researcher, as indicated in the research problem, as indicated in the research objectives, as highlighted in the research hypothesis or the research questions. Then you report on those things so that they can be of use to the researcher and make used to make some decisions by the authorities or by the people concerned. So your research report has got a format, but these formats differ from one discipline to the other, from one company to the other. You need to be able to understand the format that the people who have commissioned the study are looking forward to, and then you complete your report and you submit. That's what we we recommend, and this is step number 8 of our research process. So basically, step 1, identify the problem. Step 2, we evaluate the literature which is here. Step 3, we create our hypothesis. Step 4, we design our research. Step 5, we describe our population. Step 6, we do our data collection. Step 7, we do analysis. And step 8, that is our research report writing. Thank you very much for being part of this study. I do believe you have got questions, you have got issues concerning this, and you are free to put them in the comment section in our Google Classroom so that I can tackle them. And it's also good for you to put them where everyone can see so that we all benefit out of it. And then we proceed to the next section of our research and data analysis certificate as indicated in our course outline. And I'm very much happy that there is positive participation from all of you, and it's helping us to build an interactive learning approach to this, because we are adults. Actually, research requires someone who is interactive, because as long as you are dealing with people, you may need to be able to engage them actively so that they freely give you the right information without feeling being coerced, something like that. Thank you very much, and I enjoy the rest of your learning for today as we prepare for lecture number 3 in the first week of our certificate in research and data analysis. Enjoy your time. Thank you.